Hello, welcome. Please take a seat. We will start shortly in another 5 minutes or so.
And welcome and thank you for coming. My name is Manisha Rao. I'm one of the IFA core members, and we are thrilled to see all of you here on a Sunday morning. Most of you, I think, are familiar with IFA, but for those who might be new, IFA is a local non-profit organization established in 1993, and our core mission, you can probably look at our poster up there too, is really empowerment and upliftment of the marginalized communities all across India. As opposed to just pure charity, our goal is to raise awareness so that people at the lowest rungs of society can become aware, know their rights, and come together to fight for their rights. Marginal farmers and farm laborers constitute a large percentage of the poor communities in India that are a focus of IFA's support. Hence, Deja Vu, a brilliantly made film, resonates with IFA as it deals with the agrarian crisis. 60% of the population in India depends on agriculture for their livelihood. The government tried to address the severe distress amongst the farmers via 3 farm laws, but those were seen by the farming community as corporatization of agriculture. And that, in turn, led to a massive year-long agitation against these laws. The film is a sensitive narrative drawing parallels in the lives of the American farmers 4 decades ago to the modern plight of the Indian farmers. I'm not going to say a whole lot more, and I'm going to let you watch for yourselves. But before we do that, I want to introduce our special guests today. We are honored to have with us for the screening the very accomplished yet humble director, Bedabrata Pain. He's known to IFA since 1997, when we screened an earlier documentary, Lifting the Veil, that analyzed the impact of the then new economic liberalization policy. Based in LA, Bedo, that's how we call him, hails from the state of Bengal. He was a leading member of the team that invented CMOS, digital image sensor technology, the technology that enabled the world's smallest camera. We all use it in our little iPhones every day. He was a leading member of the team. He is an award-winning senior research scientist at NASA and Caltech. He holds over 90 patents and is an inductee to the U.S. Space Technology Hall of Fame. He's a technology consultant for the prime movie camera maker RED Digital Cinema. He received his BTech from IIT Kharagpur, yes, and his PhD, somebody said yes? There you go. And his PhD from Columbia in 1992. And he taught at UCLA from 1998 to 2008 and has received prestigious awards such as the Llewellyn Award, NASA Inventors Award, and IIT Distinguished Alumnus Award. Amazingly though, during this time, he has also managed to be an acclaimed filmmaker. He won the National Film Award for directing his feature film Chittagong in 2012. And if any of you out there have not seen it, I highly recommend it. What a beautiful, beautiful film.
Thank you.
He's currently working on several feature films and web series in India and in Hollywood. The present documentary was inspired by the farmers' movement and was more than a year in the making and has been shown extensively in India and other places. Bedabrata Pain.
Thank you.
If you would like to.
Okay.
well then I think if I have to say something, then the first thing I want to do is that there are 4 of us that took this trip. And 3 of us are from Los Angeles and 1 from Seattle. And the other 2 from Los Angeles are not here, but the person from Seattle is here. Rumela, come, forget this. All I would say this is that it's rare that one country's future is kind of already etched in stone in another country's past. Rarely does that happen. And here is one such instance. So we'll come back and we'll have the discussion. Now, with that, here's Monisha.
Now, we are truly honored and we want to welcome our second guest today, Shri S R Hiremath, who has been a friend, an advisor, and a close associate of IFA from our beginnings. He began his life in the US as a management consultant in the corporate sector. He participated in the anti-emergency campaign in the early 80s and subsequently gave up his career in the US to settle with his family in rural Karnataka. During the next 4+ decades, via an NGO, Samaj Parivartan Samuday, he dedicated his life to rural upliftment along with opposition to corporate plunder and environmental destruction. He's led several campaigns, including the highly successful one in Bellary, that exposed the massive iron ore scandal involving the Reddy brothers. He was instrumental in halting the theft of this critical resource and in ensuring that the culprits were brought to justice. He's currently the president for Center for Democracy, the venerable organization founded by the late Shri Jayaprakash Narayan. S R Hiremath. Thank you both for being here, and we look forward to our discussion with you both after the film. So ladies and gentlemen, Deja Vu.
Wow, thank you so much. It was an extraordinary experience. I'm sure all of you must have shared here. Really touching movie. We do have a break at this point of time. We have some lunch set up for people. We'll shortly set that up. We will resume the panel discussion at 1 o'clock, half an hour from now. Whether or not we already have your email, please do sign up on that sheet so that we know how many people attended here. And we'd like all of you to be engaged in these events too in the future too. We'll break for lunch and come back shortly for a panel discussion with Mr. Pain, the director, and Mr. Hiremath. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
the one thing that I would like to encourage all of you to do is to visit our website, indiafriendsassociation.org. That's all one word, indiafriendsassociation.org. You will, of course, like in any website of that kind, find a prominent donate button there. We are definitely very grateful for all of your donations, because that is the way that we sustain ourselves and do the activities that we are pursuing in India, as you can see. We have, of course, as I'm sure many of you who are familiar with IFA will know that our annual fundraiser is usually always held in the month of May. Archana 2025 will be again in May 2025 at the 1000 Oak Sidcast Plaza. We will shortly provide more details about the theme and other details of that program. We definitely want to try and spread the word as much as possible. One of the good things about, we had, I think, an exceptional turnout today, so thank you all very much for coming and spending a part of your Sunday here. I'm sure there are many other things that you can do on a Sunday, but this, I think, is definitely a very worthwhile thing to do. So once again, just a reminder once again, please put down your email addresses. I know that I've said this 3 times already. This is the first time. So your email addresses are a good way for us to keep in touch. That's how we manage to get everybody engaged with us, and that's what we'd like to do. So now we'd like to start with a panel discussion with Bedo and SRG. We'll start with a couple of questions that Manisha has, and then we'll pass the mic around to all of you who may have some questions to ask them, and then we'll ask them to share some of their experiences too. Thanks.
Okay. I was telling, after the film, I was telling Bedo, this is the second time I've seen the film, and both times I've had goosebumps and knots in my stomach. And I think as I was walking around talking, it felt like almost everybody had the same sentiment. So thank you for doing the film, Bedo.
Thank you.
So Shekhar said a couple of things. I have one question for each of you, and then we'll open it up. So we'll start with you, Hiremath. We watched the film. We have a little bit better understanding. I know, again, several of you in the audience, and as we were talking, we're saying we've all heard farmers protest, but what does it really mean? What is MSP? Why did this all happen? This whole agrarian crisis. So we have a better understanding with the film, but if you could, being in India, having seen the whole thing through, can you tell us a little bit more about it and tell us how it started, what happened, and where we are now?
Thank you. I don't think it is that dramatically different.
Microphone.
He has done an extremely wonderful job. What has happened here, we expected that this will happen in India. Not exactly precisely this, but in that direction. I will answer it in 2 parts. One is what you had seen, parity price here in the US. Because when you adopt an economic system which caters to the interest of certain section only, then it is bound to have adverse impact on the other section. And as my friend Prithvi puts it, the whole world is going towards, at least at that time, now in India, towards centralization, towards control of natural resources by a handful of people, because it is taking away from the community control that existed on the thing, and that different people can coexist in the earlier system. It will be different. And as you pointed out, Bill Gates, the enormous land that he owns, this kind of uneven, thing that happens is because of the kind of economic policies that we have. And in India, preceding this, when this happened, one important development happened in 2014. That is when the new government took power. Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister. And Modi is in the end of that year, introduced an ordinance. And what was that ordinance? That is generally called as the land ordinance. So, what we working with the marginalized sections had done for nearly 3 decades, he undid it with one ordinance. And that was the land acquisition. Because land acquisition was made very difficult. And first step in that direction is to, make it easy access for the corporates, and then they can have any amount of land that they want, depending on the situation of the economics. And what happens generally that time was there was widespread protest from all over the country, especially the tribals, the sections that IFA works with, landless laborers, marginalized farmers, the 60% of the population which depends on the agriculture. And as we had seen in early 1980s, I will go back to that, if you have an informal interaction later on about national forest policy. These are all natural resources. Like we human beings, when our constitution says liberty, equality and fraternity, we're all interlinked with each other. So when that happened, we saw the shape of things to come. But that protest was so strong that Mr. Modi, just like Ronald Reagan, again it is not particular political party, particular individual. It is the system that we have to look at. Otherwise sometimes we tend to forget that. And when that protest happened, he in fact went to the extent of proroguing the Rajya Sabha to renew that ordinance and to do this. So we saw that next things are going to come. But he was forced to withdraw that. But somehow the media, which was gradually becoming more and more controlled over the years, that is happening here, things were not so much. And one of the things that you see in the film is this, what's called AIKS, All India Kisan Sabha. During the freedom movement in 1936, in the Lucknow conference, they had tried to address the issues of the farmers. This has been an agrarian crisis, has been a long crisis. And that group, which was started during the freedom struggle, predominantly socialists and communists and others, progressive people, in 1938, it became basically mass organization of the Communist Party, the non-Communist Party has become. So all these people who were aware of where the things were heading were able to bring these 500 various groups together for the catastrophe that will definitely happen. Which means next they will unleash through laws basically that the land control and this whole corporate agriculture or industrial agriculture as they call it was to happen. So in my mind, those of us who have been like partners with you, who are aware of the larger pictures, like I have worked for 10 years in corporate America, we know the corporate ways of doing things and how they do it. So we were very alert that this could happen. So that is when the efforts began on the land issue. So that is the genesis of all coming together, looking at the larger picture and the shape of things to come and organize ourselves to face this. So 1 year long struggle that happened when the government was so determined, even the names of those laws were so attractive as if they were basically going to help the farmers, they were aware of it. So in my opinion, this coming back to the market price, this was basically in an unequal economic system. It was to keep them alive, keep them at a sustainable level was the issue. And when they start getting more and more control, they want more and more labor in the industry, like what has happened in the industrial revolution. So this was the process. So this MSP is a very important process. And it happened more so because after the Green Revolution in the late 60s, after we faced the serious food crisis in the 60s, so farmers in Punjab and Haryana were getting it. So they were the ones who were going to be affected. And there were these All India Kisan Sabha, Bharatiya Kisan Union, all these people, since we were all coming together, it was able to create awareness there. And Punjab, as you know, throughout our freedom movement and all that, they have been much more struggle-centric than any other place. So the two together have raised the issue. Now the greatest challenge is to basically share with others in the country and to become a very important force. And in my mind, 3 satyagrahas have played a very important role in our country. First one is the 1927 Mahad Satyagraha, the most underprivileged, the most exploited, most discriminated, the untouchable, and Ambedkar was the leader of it. He not only made that water tank, which they were not allowed to drink the water, but he burned Manusmriti, where the seeds of this discrimination, the caste system were all there. And then Gandhiji's thing, you know how it shook the whole empire in 1930, the Salt Satyagraha. And to me, for the future of mankind, for the future of all of us who are connected, for everybody to have a dignified life, everybody to have a decent life, I think this farmers' Satyagraha is a way not only for India, but for the world. This is something that requires all of ours and take it forward. I don't know I answered it, but basically surviving and going further. And already there's suicide rates, you saw here, and in India it is alarming, particularly in Vidarbha and some others. Thank you. Sorry for a long answer, but I just wanted to give you insight of the genesis of it.
So Bedo, question for you is, what inspired you to make the film? And the second part is, did you have any issues filming in India, or have you had any issues screening the film in India?
So the first question was what inspired? Oh, it must be whiskey. I have noticed in my life no inspiration comes without whiskey. So it must be the whiskey.
What brand do you drink then?
Oh, now that's getting way too personal. We don't give out such personal information. Sorry, I'm joking. It's a very serious subject. So, but I think on a Sunday afternoon, after a full bellied lunch, we are allowed a few laughters. So, inspiration. I think some of the Hiremath actually answered. When I honestly have to thank our Prime Minister Narendra Modi because
Just like Ronald Reagan.
because he does things that makes you say that okay, what the hell just happened? When the farm laws came, nobody knew what it was about. MSP, what the hell is that? Was it a price floor, price ceiling? Nobody knew. And these farm laws good? I mean, of course there is crisis and they're saying, this is going to bring prosperity, doubling farmers' income. By the way, farmers' income has actually fallen from the time that he has taken power. So there it goes, doubling. Unless he has a different math. We know A squared plus B squared math. So large part of it was to actually clarify for us what the hell is going on. And I started reading about the topic, and I came across farm suicides in America. I was like, farm suicides in America? The land of milk and honey? God's own country? Something's wrong. So I started reading more. And then I very quickly realized what you saw in the movie, that what is happening in India, I won't say just the BJP government, because this has been the policy of successive governments of in the Indian state. And in some ways I sometimes say BJP is Congress on steroids. What they're trying to do has happened in this country, this in America, for the last 40 years. So why not learn from the horse's mouth? In India at that time there was a lot of speculation. No, this will happen. No, that will happen. No, that won't happen. This and that. The farmers are morons. Not unlike what we liberals say about the farmers here and working class here. We think we are right, and working class is brainwashed. And it's the same things that we heard in 2020 about Indian farmers. Oh, these farmers are gawars. They don't know a damn thing. Oh well, they know a thing or two. Don't get me wrong. Working class farmers know what they want. They may not have the tools. Under liberal democracy, what can you do? You either become a rubber stamp or you say no. There is not, have you thought about it? We talk about democracy, but there is not a single proactive method, modality for anybody to affect what things are going to happen. All you can say is rubber stamp, yeah, and verily, or no, and 4-letter word you. So that's a problem. So that's why I said that, okay, let's learn from the American experience. What is that saying? Those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. That sort of stuff. Let's talk to the farmers. And I should say here, there's two other who took the journey, Rajshek Tarafdar and Srishti Agarwal. Kids. This was also, by the way, a great combination of youth and, what do we call it? Mature. So they had the youthful vigor. They very quickly got hold of farmers in the Midwest, and very quickly we planned that we will do a trip. And it was crazy. We were not prepared. And we didn't know what we were looking for. There's Daryl I just met here. And I was telling him that we had actually no idea what we are going to see. Being urbanites, city dwellers, doesn't prepare you for farm realities. And we understood that. In fact, one of the bad things is that we did not film ourselves while we were doing the journey, because where we were in the beginning of the journey and where we were at the end, and perhaps 1 year later when this movie was put together, it was a very challenging editing process to get the thing in what you're seeing today. That was the inspiration. And what I came out of it, and I'll end with that, is simply this, and I think this applies to the whole world today, in every sphere of our economy today, is this. If today's economy has been captured, as Hiremath was also saying, by a handful of corporates, by a handful of billionaires, by a handful of oligarchy. We call Russia oligarchy, Putin's oligarchy, this is oligarchy. And if we cannot train our guns on that oligarchy, if we cannot put on the crosshair the corporate monopolies who are sucking the lifeblood out of our world. We only talked about the human angle. There is the environmental angle. There's many other angles that we didn't talk about. Because I think sometimes in talking about environment, we forget, after all, the environment is about people. So we wanted to focus it on people, those who are hurting. And the main thing was that if we cannot train our guns on the corporate monopolies and the powers that are their cheerleaders, truth be told, both President Trump, or President-elect Trump, and Vice President Kamala Harris, and many others, form that cheerleader gang. So today, instead of focusing on this, that, and the other, if all of the issues fountainhead cannot be targeted, we are not going to find a solution. And that's what led me finally to stick on to it. And in one way sense you can say I wasted 2 years of my life. A lot of problems with my girlfriend, who would say I'm only sitting in front of my screen and editing, but all for a good cause. Oh, and before I end, I have to thank one very important person here. I think those of you who watched the movie till the end would have seen one name that's very familiar to you. Prithviraj Sharma. Prithvi, where are you?
How did that come up?
Because to make a movie takes effort and it takes money. And we did spend a lot of, I spent a lot of my money. But there were a lot of people who gave us financial support as well. And very, very important. Prithvi is one of them.
I think Manish also asked about experiences filming in India, having.
Oh, that's filming in India. Yes. Oh, that was beautiful. So one of the first. So I went to Delhi. With the farmer, where the farmers were camped. And by the way, this was a complete wrong, fake information that was coming from what we call Godi media. That the farmers were blocking the roads. Farmers were not blocking the roads. It's the police who had blocked the roads. You had to be there to see what it was. If you're not there, you won't get it. For 20 kilometers, there are farmers on both sides of the road, camped, day in, day out. We were there for a couple of days, and I was like, oh boy, how can I handle this? The mosquitoes. Of course, COVID. Where did they go for their ablution, for bathroom, for toilets? Just think about it. There were some lakhs of people there, and they were being fed every day. Think about it. How did they do it? They ran a parallel administration. Okay? And we call them gawars. Every liberal should be ashamed of themselves before ever uttering the word gawar. We have to learn from them. It's not a joke. Staying there through summer, through winter, through rain, and constantly being at the receiving ends of police.
And the government calling names.
And government calling them names.
Palestinians.
Any number of things.
Terrorists, all kinds of things.
Oh, they're coming in their Mercedes Benz. Yeah, I wish. So, the first thing, to answer your question, I was overwhelmed. He was like, what? How did they do this? And it had impacted me so badly that for a while in the film edit, the movie was becoming something quite else. Because you cannot but be, inspired and just taken in by that. So I said, no, my movie is not about that. My movie is not about the farm movement. The movies are different because there are a bunch of other movies being made about this farm protest itself. My point was that were the farmers right or were they gawars? And I hope I've answered at the end that they were far more, intelligent and knowledgeable and analytical than most of our educated, upwardly mobile middle strata. Okay. Lastly, big problem that we faced, which we could not show and did not show finally, we had gone to film where Adani is one of the biggest, most of you know, for those that do not know, one of the biggest corporate mafia, oligarchy. He had created a granary, like the ones that you saw, the elevators that you saw. He had created a granary because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to bring the grain to their granary. And if I'm allowed 1 second, in terms of farm movement, this is a great relevance. Those of you who have watched Chittagong, and I will make it available. People were asking, I'll make it available. It ends with a great farm movement called Tibhaga. In Tibhaga Andolan, one of the big things was that after the fasal katai, when you take the fasal out, the crops out, where are the crops stored? As soon as it goes into the granary of the zamindars or the landlords, game over. Getting the crops out from there, no matter what kind of contracts existed or verbal contract, whatever, was impossible. So this actually has resonates that once we take the puzzle out and put it in somebody else's granary, that's not going to work. So there was a big movement against this Adani granary, and when we went to shoot there, we were pretty much shooed away. And they said that if you put this in anywhere, we will sue you. So I said, well, you know, I can make the case without showing Adani's granary. So we didn't put it in. But yes, we were shooed away, yeah. Rest, farmers were very welcoming, and that I would say, even here, you know, we were going through Trump country, but we received, and it was extreme cold. But the exact opposite of that was a warmth that we received. And I think Rumela can talk about this even more than I can.
Granaries were built decades in advance before the farmers' movement started.
One question that I thought would be interesting to hear Hiremath, your views on, as Vedo in the movie ended on this note, saying the farm laws themselves were repealed, but the struggle for MSP continues. So what do you think is the state of where that is right now? And then I think both of you, what do you think is the prospects for where we're going to go as far as the struggle for MSP itself?
You're talking about the movement?
Well, yeah, the moment where it is now in India after the farm laws have been repealed, what's happened to it and what is its status?
Well, I think this is the crux of the whole discussion, and I think, as I put it earlier, the three major satyagrahas. Gandhi used to say, I have nothing to teach to the world. These are as old as the hills. And what are the principles? Non-violence, truth, and justice. So to me, Mahad Satyagraha of Ambedkar laid the foundation for a fairly good section of the society to become equal, citizens with dignity. Similarly, for an empire which is more or less appropriating the global resources, including our forest department and our teak and all that for their empire, was a sword satyagraha. To me, if we want to create a new humane society, this is a satyagraha we must all not only identify with it, but like the entire country rallied around it. And when Gandhi said in 1942, I will give you a mantra before, that is the Quit India resolution on August 8th, 1942. He knew very well, just like it happened in 1975, June 26th, when everybody was put in prison, majority of the opposition leaders were all put in prison. It was all planned for 6 months. And when they were all put, the people of India who were democratized, who were there, the young people came. In fact, lakhs of people, more people than 1917 revolution in Russia, participated in that. Again, building on the same three principles and going in that. So to me, this is not a hope for only India, but for the whole world. That is my short answer, but if I have a couple of minutes to say further. You see, who were the people who have fought in these basic principles for justice? Gandhi, of course, we all know. And then, sometime much later, Dr. Martin Luther King. And you know the history of things better than anybody else. And that civil rights movement, and then Nelson Mandela dismantling the apartheid and re-establishing the democracy. And I particularly want to say how your destiny, my destiny, everybody's destiny, particularly what he said, the working class people who are the bulwark of democracy. If we are all to work together, this to me should be the starting point for a new world that we envision. And what Nelson Mandela says in his long walk to freedom, he says, when I went to Robben Island, because he was the longest prisoner in history, when I went to Robben Island, I was obsessed with the liberation of the oppressed. So am I. So is IFA. So is ideas in Chicago and others. But during those long and lonely years on Robben Island, when I reflected upon my life and experiences, I came to the conclusion that both the oppressed and the oppressor are deprived of their humanity. And films like this really takes us back to what that humanity is all about and how we are all interconnected. Like we talk about biodiversity, environment, because these three movements, one is for justice and dignity of life, what we are now talking about. Environment is most central and intricately linked with it, because the struggle for natural resources and their community control, not the oligarchic control, but community control where there is still humanity and can be furthered. So then third one is the peace movement, because the Russia man is talking about strategic use of nuclear reactor. You can see what kind of thing happened in Nagasaki, Hiroshima. So all these three, peace movement, the environment movement, and this movement for strengthening democracy based on those fundamental principles, they all go hand in hand. So to me, this is the struggle. But some of us are viewing in that way. But always, it's viewing theoretically, understanding that is one thing, but actually practicing and taking it to the next thing, that's what you are doing. So to me, what is happening now among themselves is 2-3 major strains. If you go back to the beginning of this movement, the demands that are put out is boycott Adani, the greatest beneficiary, Ambani, and other things. So to me, we have to envision a new worldview. We have to envision where we can all relate to each other and all that. And to me, in that dictionary, Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, she introduced the word ecology and all that. So we will have to probably take out of our dictionary prosperity. We'll have to go back to the old Jefferson, 1776 Declaration of Independence, liberty, equality, and pursuit of happiness. And that happiness should be linked to a meaningful, contented life. So to me, we have to develop a new, vision. And in that struggle, whereas this farmers movement was basically small farmers and marginal farmers more, but fair number of agriculture laborers were there, but not as much as wanted. So that struggle has begun earlier this year. And it is the border of Haryana and Punjab, and for months together they are sustaining it. But somehow media is not coming out of that reports. So we have to get those things and do it, one hand. And on the other hand, I feel that SKM, which was basically, political movement, but they were saying that we are non-political in the sense party politics. So I think they will have to broaden it for a movement for restoration of humanity. So in that direction things are going, many of us are working, but this is such a struggle. Anything we do is very small, modest beginning. So we all have to join hands together around the world for restoration of that humanity, because what Nelson Mandela says is that the oppressor is a prisoner of his own hatredness and prejudices. So if we have to create a new world, as founding fathers of this republic have done, or our founding fathers which are enshrined in constitution and so on and so forth, but we have to create this new vision. So to me, that this movement has that great potential, and we are slowly moving in that direction. But the partnership with Idea Chicago and me began in '79, and yours has begun in 1993. So we need to increase this community much broader level, and we all have to do it together. I hope I answered it. Sorry about the long answer.
No. Obviously, media doesn't now cover many of these protests. This movie, tell us a little bit about your plans. How do we get more people to watch this movie? How do we get this message across?
You make the movie, you spend all your time, and then you have to answer how you're going to get the movie out. It's sad, but no, I understand. Look, I think there are many different levels this would work. Why we had this screening here? By the way, this is, I think, the first kind of public-ish screening in Los Angeles. So that's in one ways, those who watched the movie today and liked it, were affected by it, I would invite all of you to become its ambassadors. Take it out, go to social media, talk about it. So that's one of the things that we are slowly beginning to do. We have, I should say one more thing, that we dubbed this film in Hindi, because the Hindi being the most commonly spoken language. And the narration for that was done by Nasiruddin Shah. And he did it for free. And it was very, very, very honored that he did that. And that we have given to a large number of farm organizations in India, farm leaders and so on, and it is being shown around. I don't know where all it is being screened, but I know that it has been screened in the where the farm in the Shambhu border, where the farmers are in protest. So that's one aspect of the work. One of the big problems that we have today in India right now, with this right-wing government in place, is it's so difficult to show a movie like this around. Earlier, educational institutions is one place where you could just show the movie. Now, everybody is going through a bout of self-censorship. It's not that the police is coming and saying we are going to stop you. It's not that the PMO is coming and saying don't. But they've created this fear psychosis where everybody's like, yeah, why get that? Why get into that kind of trouble? To the point, like this movie was going to be screened in IIM Ahmedabad, which is apparently a very liberal kind of a place, and a lot of differing opinions and so on are aired and viewed. And we got the clearance, the movie was going to be screened, and 2 hours before the screening, the dean or whosoever said that, no, let's not screen it. No.
Same thing happened in Indian Institute of Science. It's a premier institute.
Absolutely. So this has created a problem. So we are basically trying to go through different organizations. I was very lucky that P. Sainath, most of you know who he is. He saw the movie in Bombay in one of the screenings, and he loved it. And they are doing the screening in Paris, the conference, I think on December 19th. So this is another level of getting it out. Then we're trying to get to film festivals and probably get to some OTT, if we can do that. And that's basically the way we are going about it. It's a very time-consuming and sort of thankless effort. And there was a song, "We are marching ahead with little victories and big defeats." It's a very old song of John Baez, and that's what it is. Every day you hear, this film festival, no, this is not arty enough. Too bad. Well, art is, art without life. That's what they want. What can be done? But that's the plan. And so please, anybody who wants to take it forward, have connections with film festivals, with OTTs, and God knows what, please contact us.
You have a couple of questions.
I just want to supplement this for a minute. I want to say that what he has done is really a superb job. The foundation is laid out. And Nasiruddin Shah is one of the most sensitive, Prithvi, again you went to me. We saw a 2-hour and 5-minute film last night. This is about environment. Films of this kind, which are very futuristic for the humanity of all of us, needs to be mainstream. Nasiruddin Shah would be one. In this environmental movement, I don't remember all the names because I don't watch so much Hollywood movies these days. First one is by Robert Redford, narrates it. And Meryl Streep narrates the last part. So I think such films should be taken out of these kinds of measures. And what is needed, about the emergency in the mid-70s, there is a saying, when you were asked to bend, you crawled.
So when government has not taken any measure, this kind of fear, what Ravish Kumar calls as both immediate, they are all falling in line. So as Gandhi said to the great British Empire in 1921 in his newsletter, Young India, real Swaraj will not come by acquisition of power by the few, but by the capacity of many to resist when the power is abused. Our democracy is in peril around the world with the right-wing governments coming in. Our environment, it is not just climate change, it is climate emergency that we have come. And these nuclear threats, the way these dictators for life or whatever longer period are talking about. Whereas in Cuba missile, you say Khrushchev, relented from the crisis because both Kennedy and there were some public opinion of strong peace movement held by this Oppenheimer, Einstein and so on. So we've got to really strengthen these movements. This film can be one of the most pioneering and most effective thing for this, taking this unique Swaraj, unique Satyagraha further for humanity. Thank you.
Strong social media, progressive social media platform now, and that would be one of the channels that we would use. But I have to exhaust the regular channels, which is the film festivals, because once you go to a film festival, you do meet reps and OTT people there, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to preclude that. But yeah, I mean, at somewhere down the line, we have to go to YouTube.
So any interest by Netflix or
If you know somebody in Netflix.
No, but I would strongly agree with her that even though this mainstream media things, I myself am a strong advocate that this social media, particularly for the younger generation, is a very powerful media. And the way you have done it, not because you are here, it touches the hearts. It goes to the essence of the humanity that we all share. So to me, every media needs to be done. Like that young fellow Dhruva or somebody, before 2024 elections, when the slogan, Ab ki baar, 400 ke paar, they could not reach the simple majority this time, whereas they had done it in 2014 and again, it is not against one individual or political party. As that man who has been governor of Mizoram said, don't trust these politicians and what they say. Observe what they do. So we have to be very careful. And that democracy is itself in danger around the world.
question? Can I? Sure. So on another note, let's say my question is in a two-part. One is, of course, I've heard all the heartfelt, very inspirational and all heart. But the farmers' protest that we witnessed in India, it was also got politically maligned, or should I say manipulated, or stroke abused. So it was difficult for an observer, I was very actively following that, to really sift out what is real with the Punjab politics and all the things that were going on. What is the real? Who is this movement about? Are the farmers really at the heart of it, or there is something? That is part one. And number two, related to that, is that much that we want to do this inspirational and all the quotes that you've narrated of Gandhi, but somehow seems that it might, the uprising of such kinds, history has shown, takes a long time. But in the meantime, would it be possible to work without any government support or intervention? And what can we do in the interim as we build the parallel movement to expedite? Because the farmers are dying by the day. Thank you.
You want to take it?
Sure, I'll take the first part of it. I think this, I forget what the first part of your question was, that the political ramifications. So, I think one of the best ways of, well, let me backtrack. One of the reasons we made this movie is to actually elaborate on exactly these questions. The demand was for MSP. What is MSP? Was that a justified demand? Now you watch the movie. You tell me, Was that a justified demand?
To me, it seems.
So if it does, and I'm sure, this movie is not just about heart. The amount of research that has gone, and you've seen this in the infographics, is massive. So I think in today's world, when we connect heart with mind, logic with empathy, we go somewhere. And one of the things that I would want this movie to do, and this is actually kind of obliquely coming to your question, is for urban, upwardly mobile middle strata who make a lot of the opinions, for them to be aware of it. That these are real issues. That this haven't come because some Khalistanis have done whatever. So let's talk about it. Why don't we talk about what ails Indian farming? Now, how is it possible that our government says doubling the income, and then you're saying that no MSP? How is that possible? How is it possible that, so where is MSP? Why should there be MSP? Let's have that open discussion. How many channels have you seen an open discussion of why there should be MSP? And this is a very important question. Because
Whatever I have learned, this topic is not a very simple one.
it is actually a very simple one.
It could be, but it doesn't come out.
But that's a problem because the media creates disinformation. So what I'm trying to say?
That was my question actually.
Exactly. So that was
my question.
This is exactly where I'm coming to. So when I broke down the MSP, it makes sense that should be almost the living wage a farmer should get. Now so immediately questions will come, why should they get 50% above their production cost? How is that possible? Well, you have to realize farming is not making luck so. How many times do you have a crop? Twice a year? Thrice a year tops? How many lakh soaps do you make a day? I don't know how many they make anymore. But okay, Lifebuoy. Millions. So large-scale commodity production and farming is two very different ways of doing it. If this much of money is not available, farmers cannot survive. Farming is one of the most unstable way of operation. 1 year you have excess rain, 1 year you have no rain. And Indian farming, 70% is dependent on rain. It's rain-fed farming. So once you put all of that together, I expect that this movie, one can take it to as a way of fostering discussion. Because one of the things about today's democracy is that there is no discussion. You are asked to take sides without discussion. It is certainly not a Chelsea versus Arsenal game that you just take sides. This is real things going on. So what is at stake? It's like MSP. Let me finish this point. Do you think MSP is market distorting? That's the word that they would constantly use. That if you have MSP, that means government is interfering in the economy and setting prices. So I asked one of those guys. Every morning, one of the biggest things that we talk about how the economy is going to be is interest rate. So the interest rate should be cut, interest should be increased. Who's cutting the interest rate? Not market. Government. Fed. In the most developed country of the world, it is the government or a pseudo-government organization that is setting how the economy is going to be. And then we turn around and say, MSP cannot be given. That is market distorting. Have you noticed whenever it is a matter of people's livelihood, say minimum wage, or MSP, or parity in this country, and many other such things. Healthcare. All of a sudden they say, oh, this is market distorting. But when the corporates are selling you things at 10 times the cost, why should a cup of coffee in Starbucks cost $5? Okay? That's not market distorting. Let me tell you one thing and I'll end and then I'll leave you. You know, they always bring in market reforms by saying we are bringing free market. They're bringing anything but free market. Where is the free market? You go around, look at health. Handful of companies control health. Health insurance, hospitals, pharmacy, drugs. Now you go to entertainment. Some 6 companies give you what you consume. You look around every single sphere of life. Handful of companies control what you eat, what you think, what you feel, where you shop, how you live. This is what today's control by a handful of monopolies is, not just from the farm sector. And that's why I say that today's democracy, issues of democracy rest really on our ability to bring these corporate oligarchies, these corporate monopolies in line. There is no free market. And this issue has come on the forefront of America. Even business school professors now are writing about it. They're saying there is no free market. I'm not joking. NYU Stern Business School. There's a guy called Philippon. Look at his book, The Great Reversal. He's no communist, he's no leftist. He is a business school professor. And he's saying we have gone to a point where the entire resources are being taken away by the corporates. Now, coming back to the farm sector, these are issues that we would like to discuss. And then we say what the MSP should be. You know, we talk about MSP in India. MSP is there in like 3 crops: rice, wheat, and sugar. Right? These are the 3 crops that it is MSP. Why not make MSP for all crops? That's what the demand of the farmers are.
Yeah, like in Karnataka, jawar, ragi,
everything.
Millets, very nutritious.
Yes.
Now they are discovering the virtues of the thing.
And you see what it does immediately. It diversifies crop. Why are farmers today going after rice in India, which is causing water level depletion and all those sorts of things, which are very real? Because that's where they can get a guaranteed income. So you make MSP in ragi or any of the others, fruits, people will diversify to that. You want diversification? You want water level depletion to stop? MSP on all. And they won't talk about it. And by the way, MSP doesn't necessarily mean only government has to procure. Just as the interest rate sets the floor of where things will be traded, MSP will do exactly the same thing. And does exactly the same thing. So there is a lot, I'm serious, there's a lot to discuss. I mean, some things we didn't talk about. How was parity enforced in this country? There's something to be learned. So, I'm sorry, these are very, I don't think I've answered your question quite well, but all I'm saying is that I think movies like this can help foster discussion. That's all. After that, maybe I'm completely wrong in everything I say, and that's absolutely fine. But let the discussion happen.
That is the point. Yeah, all I would like to add a few points from my own experience. You say, what is the way out? First of all, whatever we are hearing about the farmers' movement, what their reality is, what their demands are, what their perception of the worldview is and all that, are all truncated, they are not coming out. So, one of the first things you can do is in your own circle, friends you know here, friends you know in India and all that. Such films have to be made. Because ultimately, it is this humanity that we have Nobel Prize in economics. So he was saying that, please treat these people as human beings like you and me. And they have their own talents, they have their own contributions. So when like Kailash, Prithvi and Munishaji, when they all come to the field, you see the kind of talented people they are. They don't have opportunity, they don't have choices to make. So all we are doing is basically, we ourselves have moved forward, so we are giving that opportunity back to them. So to me, it is very, very important that we have to see what the governments are doing and not be duped by them. Like one friend in Chicago gave me a book about some 10, 15 years ago called Perfectly Legal. How the bottom 20% people's wealth and income have been siphoned off to the top 1%. Like these 3 companies that farmers talk about, and they ruined their lives, many of them went back, whatever happened, and it ends up there. So for me, it is very important to understand this democracy. So when people ask me, what do you do in India? I say, I do 3 things. One is I work at the grassroots, empowerment of the marginalized sections, what IFA. Second thing I do is an environmental activist, because if we have to survive as humanity, Earth is on the brink of disaster right now, as you know, with the kinds of disasters that have happened in India, hurricanes that have happened here, and all that things. So we have to survive that. Environment movement is very crucial. And third and most important thing is democratization. Like going back to my mother, if I could go back and do something, I have to understand what those people did for our country. In 1975, when I was the president of Ideas, helping this grassroots movement, this emergency came. I don't know, whatever the inspiration was, I jumped into it. Because emergency is a wrong thing, because unless there is a democratic setup where we can freely think, we can discuss, and we can shape our lives, we cannot go very far. And last 10 years, there was a declared emergency, it is an undeclared emergency. So our effort should be one, environmental movement, empowerment of the party, and largely coming together of building a larger political movement for our children and grandchildren. And to me, people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King and Gandhi have already laid out the path before us. Sorry about taking time. Thank you.
I know you've been waiting to ask a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, can I just say one thing before you start? You will get your question. I know you've been waiting for time. I know we were supposed to be here till 2, but whoever wants to stay, we're okay to stay here for another half an hour. She's gonna get her question, and after that, what's that question here? But I also want to we actually have a farmer in the audience, and I do want to give him an opportunity to say something, but first your question.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, very quickly, what we can do from our own very small spots is, this is directed to the director. How can we have access to the movie? Because I would like to publicize it, but the question, will be, how do we get access to the movie? That's one thing, that's my one point. Second point is, if you haven't thought about it, I'm sure you have, but reaching out to NPR, Scarborough Museum, because they lend themselves very much to creating a nice blurb.
Do you have a contact?
I could try. And I'll be in touch with you, because I have your Facebook contact. But if you can tell us how we can tell our friends and family how they can, what would be the mechanism to get
to India's situation, you have crossed a bridge of intelligence that they say there's nothing common about sense. Well, it brings common sense to the situation. I'd also like to say that this battle is not a new battle. It's very, very old. A famous writer once said, you might recognize the statement, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over. You can say the same thing about land. Because water gets you to the land. Anyways, I'm delighted to be here. Some of the things that I think we can do is, as you've clearly pointed out, to share this information. One of the things I plan to do, I'm involved with an adjudication over water that's crippling some of our small local farmers. I've watched corporate farm for the last 35 years. I used to sell oranges, and then corporate took over oranges. So I went to juice, was doing fine with juice. Next thing I know, corporate bought up all the juice factories. So I tore up all my orange trees and started planting lemon and avocados. Now, corporate is taking over the lemon industry. Anything they can store, pay you one price, next thing you know, they're selling at a higher price. So it's an old story. And one of the things I plan to do is, we have something called the Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau here in Ventura County. I'm scheduled for an interview in January, and I definitely will bring this film and this situation to the attention of Ventura County farmers. Whatever effect it has, we'll see. And another thing that this country has done is it passed something under the Clinton administration called, we like the word free, right? North American Free Trade Agreement. It's done nothing but cripple everything. So watch out for the word free.
I would love to get your views on the movie itself, and you can give it separately, because it coming from a farmer is going to be very, very important for us.
And a past film.
And a filmmaker. I think it's going to be extremely important for me. I just want to make one quick statement, which is that, many people have come and told me, why is the film so negative? Why aren't you showing a solution? And the only thing I tell them is that sometimes, in order to do the right thing, you got to know what not to do. When you go out on the street and you're driving, you got to know that you should not pass a red light. The not is very important. And especially when it's from a country which is supposedly the model for the rest of the world, it's very important to know what goes wrong when this corporate driven economy is brought into place.
The famous American inventor and a genius, Benjamin Franklin, when asked, when he came out, what have you brought us, a democracy or a monarchy? His answer was simply this: I gave you a republic if you could keep it.
Nice movie. It was really, I got it to the bottom of my heart. So I'm connected to a farming community, like my ancestors. My father, he was farming when he was in Israel. So one thing, because we heard about farmers, you said when we were pretty young, in the newspapers every time. So I remember one lecture in my college time, one of our teachers, Professor Dr. H.K. Verma, he said that one day he started the lecture with the statement, the middleman has ruined our country. So that thing, still I want to get to that, because this thing is about middleman, So how, if there is any viewpoint, how we can bring the producers and the consumers together? Because this is what ails everything. Because middleman has become fatty, and that is the crux. That's where the corporates came. They took the role of middleman on a bigger scale. Yeah, thank you.
I think that's a very, very, very great question. I wish it had come a little earlier. So, allow me to expand a little bit on this. And this is an American experience as well. So in Punjab, Arathiyas, who control the local mandi, where the crop goes, yes, they are a problem. So, just as in this country, just now we had an election, President Trump used the disaffection of people with the economy to bring himself to power. He told everybody that, are you better off or worse off than 4 years ago? If you're worse off, vote for me. In India, both government and the corporates are using these aratyas as a lovely scapegoat to fatten themselves, to give themselves credibility and legitimacy. Aratyas, it's a real problem. Democratization of mandis is a very real thing, very important thing that is needed. And if the government wants to do it, the first thing they would do is to create more mandis. One of the big problems farmers face in India is the distance to a mandi.
Exactly.
If you create what they have said, that every 5 kilometers there's going to be a mandi, half the problem will get solved there. Half the problem is that farmers take their crops to a mandi and they are at their mercy because they can't take the crop back, because they have brought the crop there at their own cost. So if the government really is interested in curbing the power of the aratyas, there are hundreds of ways of doing it. You don't have to bring corporates for that. You create, there is a very strong farmers movement, as we can see. And this farmers movement can deal with that question so let me answer another question. You know, in this country, how parity was introduced. It's a beautiful mechanism, and give me a few minutes to explain that. It's a market mechanism. What happens? A farmer is, when it's a farmer most vulnerable? Right when the crop is produced. Because right after harvest, there is a lot of outstanding dues. That's when you need money. So you are ready to sell crop at whatever price you can get. What if the government, which every day says it has so many million dollars of foreign reserve and this, that and the other, and that we are the 5th largest economy and God knows how many billionaires we have. What if the government gave loans to the farmers at that point? Okay, that I'm going to tide you over. You pay, then you pay us back the loan once you've recovered the thing from the market. And that's exactly what parity did in this country. So what the parity was, they set a parity price like MSP price, and then let's say you have 10 quintals of rice. So 10 quintals of rice times the parity price would be the loan that you would be given right away. So what happens is, and it's a non-recourse loan, meaning that after 9 months, if you cannot pay the loan back, government will keep the rice. What happens? The farmer is guaranteed that price. Because even if he cannot sell the price at a market at a higher rate, he has already gotten the money from the government. But what he has done is that he has bought himself 2-3 months when the market prices start rising again. And then he can sell. You do this, these aratyas who thrive on the vulnerability of the farmers, they are sidelined. You think the government doesn't understand that? You think the government economists who are sitting there don't understand that? If they don't understand that, what the hell are they doing there? If I, who do not understand anything about farming, can know this, I'm sure, and Ashok Gulati knows it. I'm sure. I don't know who's a farm minister knows it. So Arathya's question is a very real question, and it can be resolved by using these kind of mechanisms, and right away by creating more mandis and then enforcing the price mechanisms better. And the more MSP is there, the less the Aratyas will have control over you. So I'm so glad that you asked this question, because this issue, and then in this country, as you saw, Joe Maxwell talked about it, that they come and say that, oh, get rid of the middlemen, we will give you the 10%, 15% more. Sell it to us, we'll give you 10%, 15% more. When the middleman goes, the towns die, and then those same corporates come back to you and say, now I'm going to sell you at, give you this price. Give you one more example from India. Once this movie was shown in Punjab, a farmer from, apple farmer from Himachal gave me this thing, that they had a deal with Adani. Okay, they said that, okay, in local markets you're not getting enough price, we'll give you, I forget the number, 80 rupees per kg or something like that. Not kg, whatever, the per crate or something like that. You would know better, I don't know the number, I don't remember the numbers. And they were very happy. They were getting a much better price from Adani. 2 years down the line, Adani brought the price down. And controlled the transportation so that they couldn't take the apples anywhere else. This is the problem. And this problem is not of Arathias. Arathias is being used as a scapegoat. I'm not saying that they are not a real problem, but they can be sorted out much easier. It's that we should not fall for this corporate narrative. We meaning farmers know. Don't get me wrong, farmers know. It's we, people like me, should not fall for this kind of crappy narratives that are always used to make the middle strata side with the government and the corporates. You know, one of the things that the farmers yesterday, and somebody was asking me that question, farmers that we visited, and Romana can talk about, they said that, you know, the biggest mistake we made is that we thought we can do the fight alone, that we don't need allies. That, you know, farmers alone cannot make this fight. There's got to be an alliance between farmers and those who are consumers. Because, and this is what we try to show, that this corporate farming not only ruins farmers, makes the quality of food worse, its consumers don't benefit either. It's a falsity to say that food price is low. Food price is low? Give me a break. Yes, we should not fall for corporate narratives.
Yeah, very briefly, what I want to add is this APMC Act, same thing what you talked about, has come sharply into the discussions among people. So what the people's response is that instead of government thinking in the right direction and bringing further improvements to it, it is basically handing over to the corporates. And the government here not being part of the solution, it is being part of the problem.
Thank you for this very moving and intelligent and really inspirational and aspirational movie. I don't have so much to say. A few things I wanted to say is that when this ordinance was passed, Modi and his cronies thought that they were smart. They didn't realize that the farmers know economic democracy better than we know. And you brought that out, and thank you for that. One other thing, you also talked about parity, which none of the news media, nobody talked about it. And first time people ever heard was MSP during the ordinance passed. The second thing I wanted to say is that I don't know, you're still starting to spread the word, but you may have already ideas for the next movie. I want to take this, there's another part of this equation, which is Robert Lustig is a pediatrician in this country, and what he has found in his research is that 87% of the adults are metabolically unhealthy in this country. And we have to think about the industrial farming. So hopefully you will look at it. Thank you for a great book.
Thank you. Thank you again. Sure.
I was going to ask the farmers in India successfully staved off takeover. But that didn't happen in the United States. Is it because they had no faith in their politicians that they would back them up, and in India their faith was not there? Or what is the difference for Indian success versus US lack of success?
Cold War. Cold War. So very, very important thing that happened. One is that we talked about farmers thought they can fight it alone. The second bigger problem was during Cold War period, and this one of the farmers talked about it. We don't have it in the movie, but he talked about it. Is that if you said anything sort of progressive, socialist, leftist, you could be easily sidelined by saying, "Oh, you are a Russian spy," or whatever. Because in Cold War, either you are on the side of democracy or you're on the side of communism, and that's it. So any of the ideas, so why couldn't people fight back when parity was being reduced? Because it was those who were fighting. It was a McCarthy era. McCarthy era is when the first attack on parity happens. So this played a very, very big role. It's almost like somewhat of a, how they say that you boil a lobster, that you don't bring the temperature high all at once, but slowly. That's what happened. So by the time they realized that what they're in for, it became India, in contrast, has a very long history of powers, very, very strong, going back to colonial times.